What is up, everybody? We are back. I'm going to be here quite a bit this week. Me and my girlfriend, unfortunately, are both positive for COVID, which means we are quarantining. We are staying away from everybody ever, not leaving our home. So we are going to be here. Meaning I will be on a little bit more this week. I'm feeling pretty good right now. Probably have to keep clearing my throat a bit. As long as I keep feeling well, I'll probably be streaming a bit. Tomorrow, we will be streaming Destiny because the new season comes out. Season is chosen. But today, we are talking football. And I just realized I put the wrong date on my thing because it's no longer the 7th, it's the 8th. So let me fix that. 2/8/21. All right, so I just wanted to touch on a few different things today. Most importantly, the Super Bowl that just happened. So, way before the season, back in July, me and my dad, we do picks every week throughout the season, which you see by the videos here on the channel. I picked the Bucks over the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, and of course, was correct. So, I'm super happy about that, and it went the way that I thought it would. So, I think the biggest keys of the game were obviously the pressure Mahomes was under. Mahomes actually set a record in running from people, running from pressure. He ran 497 yards running away from pressure before his throws or sacks, which is the most all year by far. Yeah, he was not able to get anything together. And that's about what I thought. I thought it was going to be a very good defensive showing by the Bucks. That's been kind of their big thing all year. Their defense has been phenomenal. I'm not surprised by that. I think one big thing that I've talked to a few people about, including my dad who does the football picks with me, he is a big proponent of Tom Brady not being good. I don't know why. But I told him, like, you can't argue. He's got more Super Bowl rings than any team in the NFL, and that's just ridiculous. So, moving on from NFL, I just wanted to touch on the Super Bowl. What matters more to me has always been college football. I'm a huge college football fan. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some big things that happened over the past few weeks, and then look forward to next year. With the early recruiting finally being over, National Signing Day was this past Wednesday. Alabama had the number 1 recruiting class. Ohio State was number 2. Clemson was number 3. Being an Ohio State fan, I'm going to focus on Ohio State a little bit. So we got Jack Sawyer, who was the number 1 recruit overall, defensive end, in a series of great defensive ends that they've had pretty consistently for the past 2 decades. I think Jack Sawyer is going to come in. He's going to see time. I don't think they're going to redshirt him. I think that he will see the field early on. Another person who's probably going to see the field early on is number 1 ranked running back, number 7 overall, Travion Henderson, who Ohio State also got. So we got the number 1 running back as well as the number 7 running back in the class, which has some pretty big shoes to fill in Trey Sermon being a one-and-done graduate transfer here for us. We got the number 2 and number 4 ranked wide receivers, Emeka Egbuka and Jaden Ballard, which I don't think they will see the field early on in their career. I think that we have some depth at wide receiver, so I would not be surprised if one of the two at least is redshirted. One of the biggest question marks still that we are waiting on is JT Tumalau, who is the number 1 defensive tackle in the class, number 5th overall recruit. He is still uncommitted, has already said he's not announcing his pick till later in the spring. So we're waiting. We are just up in the air. We don't know who he's going to pick. His shortlist for the finals are Alabama, Ohio State, USC, who I obviously hope he goes to Ohio State, but I would not be surprised if he went to Alabama as well. So I think it's going to be very interesting watching for whenever he finally makes his decision closer to the end of the late signing period. But one thing that I do want to kind of talk about too, as we're talking about these recruits, I think one of the most interesting things looking at this next year is the NCAA, for the first time I've ever seen, gave out another year of eligibility to all players who wanted it because of everything to do with this COVID season. That being said, if you look at that top cream of the crop team that's been in the college football playoffs, the Alabama, Oklahoma, Ohio State, Clemson, they still lost the players they were going to lose. We're not seeing Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Mac Jones, any of those people. They're not coming back for that fifth year because why would they? They're going to be first, second round picks. But when you go to that next level down of teams that were pretty damn good but just weren't quite there, they're keeping those teams. One of the biggest ones one of the biggest two teams I think are going to have a great year in what I think will be the most competitive year of college football in modern history is going to be the North Carolina Tar Heels. If you look, they've returned 10 defensive starters going into next year, returned 8 offensive starters, including their full offensive line, and quarterback Sam Howell, who honestly has got to be a favorite for the Heisman next year. So if you look at those teams that were on the cusp where they were 8-4 and lost to Clemson for the ACC, they can take that. That is a realistic title shot for them now with just the returning skill they have. Another one who I think is going to be great is going to be the Cincinnati Bearcats. Obviously, they play in the AAC. They really don't play anyone difficult. But they're returning 8 offensive starters, 7 defensive starters. And honestly, their quarterback did announce he's coming back for his 5th year, which I think is awesome. It's Desmond Ridder. Not a great quarterback, but he is an above-average quarterback, especially with the wide receivers they have. I think they have potential to make a top 10 push. The other one, the only one really that has an opportunity to potentially break that bubble of being in the college football playoffs is Iowa State. Now, hear me out. I know y'all think this is going to be crazy, but Iowa State is in the Big 12. Let me just bring up their schedule for next year. There we go. So, of course, they didn't actually announce it. But, so their non-conference games, one of them is against Iowa, who has perennially been a top 25 team, like 20 through 25, 13 through 25. But let me just bring this up here. Sorry, I should have had this prepared. But if you look at Iowa State having to play Texas, having to play Oklahoma, TCU's been ranked, aside from last year, which was an off year for them. Oklahoma State's been good. West Virginia's been good. They have potential of having 4 top 25 wins, 5 top 25 wins potentially, including a great Oklahoma team. Meaning they have potential to have that 4th spot, kick Notre Dame out of there, because Notre Dame has proven being an independent, you cannot do it. You cannot make the college football playoffs. They've gotten trounced every time. So I think that's something that to watch for is because these teams that are on the cusp that are good teams that just are just not being considered because of the great ones, they're bringing back all these players who they're taking that 5th-year option. Why wouldn't you? Another team who I think is going to be a very, very improved team is going to be the USC Trojans. So USC has really fallen off ever since all the issues back in the mid-2000s. They've just continually declined. However, they're returning 8 offensive starters, 8 defensive starters, and have had a hell of a recruiting class. So that is something that I think can go really well for them. Excuse me. So the biggest thing to look at for them is they need a quarterback. So they actually got 2 ESPN top 300 quarterbacks, who I think will be the starter is going to be Jackson Dart. So I think this kid is he's a dual threat. I think he will come in as a true freshman start. I don't think he's going to come in and be some god tier guy. But that offense has a lot of pieces already around him that are returning. He's just got to fit in the mold. They did get defensive end Corey Foreman, who's the number 3 defensive end. I think that's going to be another really good setup for them. I don't think Foreman will start. I think he will definitely see the field a little bit though. So another team that I want to look at or just talk about, honestly, is going to be Arizona. So, or we'll start with Arizona State because that's the better of the two. Arizona State had a little bit of a down year in recruiting compared to last year. So last year they had a top 25 class, which was really surprising. This year they were ranked 36th with only 3 top ESPN 300 commits, which is a little bit surprising. But they did get Isaiah Johnson, which, as lowly as he was ranked, because he was ranked 182nd in the ESPN 300, I think that he is going to come in and just dominate. So they have Isaiah Johnson and Tommy Hill, both cornerbacks in the top 300, and the only other commit in the top 300 they got was Lanyata Alexander, who is a wide receiver. I think all 3 of these guys will come into Herm Edwards' team and play out the bat. So I think that they have an opportunity to really show up in the Pac-12, and the Pac-12 really is up for grabs lately. Oregon is not as dominant of a team as it has been. Looking at Arizona, though, Arizona they're struggling. They signed their coach way too late in the recruiting season. They lost basically every recruit that they really wanted. They had none in the top 300. But they did get 2 3-star recruits. Well, one being James Bowles, the running back, and the second one being Kevin Garcia, outside linebacker. So if Arizona is known for one thing, it is for producing great linebackers. They've done it time and time again over the past 20 years. That is what they have traditions of. But they have a brand new coach with Kevin Sumlin out. So let's see what they can do and take a team that is not his and show up in this coming season. Because that is going to set the precedent, set the tone for what they can recruit next season. Because if you remember, it's not that long ago that Arizona was a top 25 team perennially. So I would not be surprised to see them bounce up a little bit. Now, I don't expect them to go for the Pac-12 title, anything like that in the next 2 years. But I expect them to be a 5-7, 6-6 type team and really push that card of what Arizona could be. That being said, I think that ASU is going to take advantage of that as well, where ASU, instead of being a 6-6 team, they're going to look at that 9-3, 8-4 type spot where they're going to get a decent bowl game. They're going to continue their success. And it's really gonna be a great rivalry to watch. With that being said, I'm very interested to see. So there was very little transfers in the Pac-12 or overall this year, but LSU has lost 4 players that were starter or saw the field last year. So the majority of the transfers came out of LSU. So what does that say? So Ed Orgeron had some great coaches, had some great teams, had a one-off championship run. But if you look, his team could not repeat that success last year. So what did Orgeron do? He fired his OC, fired his DC, fired most of his position coaches, and rehired a brand new staff going into this year. That's a very, very big risk. They're still going to get the recruits. They always will get the recruits because it's LSU. LSU is one of those teams that they have the prestige. They're always going to be there. They had 14 commits in the top 300. But honestly, no one really to write home about. They did get Garrett Nussmeier, who is a quarterback on top 300. Low top 3 or mid top 300. He didn't really stick out as me as someone who's going to come out and make an impact in college football. So we'll really see how that goes. But they did get Corey Reiner, running back, who is from Ohio, which they chose LSU over Ohio State, which really, I didn't like that. But they did have 14 commits in the top 300, like I said. So they have an opportunity to really rebuild this year. But if they don't show up with this young talent, if these kids don't come out and play and put them in a spot to win the SEC or compete with Alabama for the SEC championship, I think that Orgeron is going to be on a hotter seat than most people realize. Because with LSU, they expect to be a top 5 team. That is what they want. That is what they demand. So when you have such a bad year as LSU did this past year, yeah, it's COVID year, blah, blah, all that. But if you do it again, that you might be on your way out, even as loved as Orgeron is. But that's really everything going on in football today. I know it's a little bit of a quick shout out little thing, but I wanted to just touch base on where recruiting is because National Signing Day was this last Wednesday, and a lot has happened. I'm still waiting to see where Tom Herman ends up because he's got to end up as a coach somewhere. Steve Sarkisian going over to Texas, I think, is a great move. I think Sarkisian is in a much better space now than when he went to USC. Obviously, he's made a big turnaround in his life with drugs and alcohol, being sober for X amount of time now, a few years. But I think that he will be in a very tough spot in Texas because in Texas it is not about the success of the program only. You have to be able to reel in those boosters, bring in that community. Being at UT Austin, it is a whole nother ball game. Like this is some drama show BS that they have to deal with, and that's one thing that Tom Herman could not do. Even though he had 2 bowl game wins in 2 years and a winning record, he still got fired because the fans, the community, the boosters, they were not on the same page as him, and that was enough for the AD to get rid of him. And that is something you don't really see many other places in college football. So we will see how Sarkisian fits into that meld. I think he will have some substantial success. He did steal from Alabama, which I think is great. He stole 3 different coaches from the Alabama staff to come over to Texas with him. So he's basically making it a mini Tuscaloosa. So we'll see if he can really do what Nick Saban does and really replicate what they were doing there in Texas. Only time will tell. I think that this will be a tough year to judge him because Texas did have a good year last year. So if he doesn't continue that success coming in his first year, I think a step backwards is going to demand a Big 12 championship run in that next season. But we'll see how that comes. The only other really big thing is, I think, with Alabama. So Alabama picked another really good quarterback. They already have 2 5-star quarterbacks on their roster because why not get a third? But they did get Bryce Young, who is the number 1 dual threat quarterback. So he's apparently coming in as a true freshman. Looks like they are pegging him to compete for the starting job, which is absolutely wild to me. So I think that that'll be very interesting to see if he's going to come in and really do what they want him to do in Alabama offense. Or is it going to be another situation where they just rotate 1 year like they have been? So there's a lot of little question marks. We know in the end Alabama's going to be Alabama. They haven't had a down year in 20 years, it feels like. If they lose 1 game, that'll be a surprise. But we have a lot of time left. We have a lot of time to see what other coaching changes, how things develop, if teams are allowed to actually have spring ball in some facet. We'll find out soon, hopefully. But we will be doing these little short burst episodes throughout the weeks, kind of as things happen, as interesting things pop up, and especially going into the scouting combine and draft week. I want this Just Talking thing to kind of not just be about football or just about sports, but really about anything that people want to talk about. So if you have some topic that you want to know more about, something that you want to discuss, whatever, I'm a very, very broad person when it comes to expertise. So I know a lot about a lot, and I'm certified to talk about a lot. So whatever you guys have questions about, comment below after the stream. I'm going to post this up on YouTube as well, so comment there, ask away, and we'll continue to do these, because these are going to be fun little bursts. But thank you guys for stopping in today. I know it was a quick one. I'll be back on either later today with a little bit of Destiny in to get ready for the new season tomorrow. If not later today, I will be on for sure at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, which is the time for the new season of the Chosen on Destiny, where we will be getting wild with whatever the Cabal are throwing at us. But that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I will see y'all later.